Okay. Whoops. So today we are going to start a new unit called the order of operations. And this is probably something that is brand new to you. So I'm going to put a problem up here on the board, and I want you to think about what the answer is. Okay. So the problem that I'm going to put up here is 16 minus 6 times 2. Okay. 16 minus 6 times 2. Think about that. There's two operations there. Okay. There's two operations there. So what do we think the answer is? Andrew? 20. Okay. Does everybody agree with Andrew?
Yeah.
Okay. What?
So it's 16 minus 16. No, it's 16 minus 6.
Mm-hmm.
So that means it would make 10.
Mm-hmm.
And times 2.
Okay. What if I said 20 is not the correct answer?
Oh, I know what it is.
What if I said 20 is not the correct answer?
Oh.
Devin? Is it 4? Do we think it's 4? How did you, okay, we had 20 as our first answer. I feel like my voice is muffled. We have 20 as our first answer. If you do the subtraction first, 16 minus 6 is 10, and then 10 times 2 is 20, right? That is incorrect. That is the incorrect way to solve this problem. We have this process for a reason, okay? Because you can't have two answers for the same problem. One of them is right and one of them is wrong, okay? So we have a set of rules called the order of operations. And so, yes, Devin said the answer was 4, and that is the correct answer because we have to follow a special set of rules when we have operations or when we have problems with multiple operations in it, okay? And so if we multiply first, that's going to give us 12, and then we would have 16 minus 12, which is 4, okay? So there is a special set of rules in math called the order of operations, okay? And that's what we are going to learn about and work with over the next 2 weeks, okay? So this is one example of how you would do this problem or a problem with multiple operations. So we have subtraction and we have multiplication. So let me give you another example. And let's think about this one. Okay. Let's say I had 2 plus 4 times 10. 2 plus 4 times 10. Am I going to add first or am I going to multiply first? What do we think? Raise your hand if you think we're going to add first. Raise your hand if you think we're going to multiply first. Yes, we have to multiply first. According to the order of operations, we need to multiply before we add, okay? So our answer would be 42, okay? So we would have 4 times 10, which is 40. And then I come back here and say 2 plus 40 is 42. If we did not follow the order of operations, our answer would be 60. If you did not follow the order of operations, you would end up with 60. 2 plus 4 is 6 times 10 would be 60. So what are the order of operations, or what are the set of rules that we need to do? All right, so we have, I'm trying to erase this here. We have a set of rules, and there are 2 methods that we can use to help us remember what the rules are. The first method that I'm going to teach you today is what your Edpuzzle video is for today. The video that you watch tomorrow when you're at home tomorrow is going to focus on the other strategy, okay? So we have a set of rules, and I remember it as PEMDAS. Okay, when I was in school, this was the method that we used for order of operations. And the way that we remembered this was, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And I want to talk about what these letters mean. So the P stands for parentheses. Parentheses can look like this, but in math, sometimes we have things called brackets that look like this. And sometimes we have these little fancy brackets that look like this. All of those things would be considered parentheses, okay? Or we could say groupings, all right? So if you had a problem like this, like we just had, all right? And we know, according to the order of operations, just because I told you this, we would multiply first before we added. If I wanted this problem, if I wanted to add first, if I wanted to do 2 plus 4 first, I would have to do this. I would have to put that 2 plus 4 in parentheses if I wanted to solve that, if I wanted to do that step first, okay? Because in the order of operations rules, when you have something in parentheses, that's what you always do first, okay? So in this case, I would do 2 plus 4, which is 6, and then 6 times 10, which is 60, okay? If my parentheses were not there, then I would have to multiply first, okay? So the first thing in the order of operations is parentheses. The next thing, the E, stands for what's called an exponent. An exponent. Does anybody know what an exponent is? An exponent, all right, let me write down, let me see, parentheses. Okay, exponents. Some people say exponents. I say exponents. If I wrote this with a little 3 up there, this little 3 right here is called an exponent. Okay? And what that means is I could say this 2 to the power of 3. And what that means is I'm taking 2 times 2 times 2. I'm not saying 2 times 3, which is 6. 2 times 3 means 2 plus 2 plus 2, right? 2 times 2 times 2, if I wrote it out like this, would be what? 2 times 2 times 2. Kaylee? 2 times 2. 8. So if I said 2 times 2, that is 4, times 2 again is 8. So this means repeated multiplication. It's not repeated addition. If I had 2 times 3, that means this. 2 plus 2 plus 2, which is 6. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Okay? If I change this exponent to a 4, let me get rid of this. If I change that exponent to a 4, That would be 2 to the 4th. Okay, so then I would just make another times 2. My number is doubling each time. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. Okay. If I said 5 to the 2nd power, or if I had that little 2 up there, that does not mean 5 times 2. It means 5 times 5, which would be what, Andrew? 25. So this little exponent right here means that you are multiplying repeatedly. So your number gets really, really big, really, really fast. Okay, so 5 times 5 is 25. What happens if I said 5 to the 3rd power? That would be 5 times 5, which is 25, times 5 again. 25 times 5 is 125. So your number, when you have an exponent, gets really big, really fast.
So it's basically 125 is the same as 0.8. Yeah, because 0.8 is decimal form is 100.
You're thinking 1/8
Yeah,
as a decimal. 1/8 as a decimal is 0 and 125 thousandths. That's different than 125 as a whole number. All right, so that's what an exponent is. The good thing is in 5th grade math, you will not have any order of operations problems with exponents. In middle school, yes. In 5th grade, no. Okay, but that's what exponents. That's what the E stands for, is exponents, and that's what you would do second. Okay, if you had parentheses, you would do parentheses first, and then you would do anything with an exponent. And then the next step is multiplication and division. And here's where some people feel like this PEMDAS thing is misleading. Okay, and when I say misleading, I mean this is where sometimes teachers think that the PEMDAS example is not the best way to remember because students get confused with the M coming before the D. The M stands for multiplication and the D stands for division. But these two operations are equally important. Just because multiplication comes before division in PEMDAS does not mean that you always multiply before you divide. For example, if I had 12 divided by 2 times 3, if my only operations are multiplication and division, because they're on the same level, they're equally important. If my only two operations are this and this, then I do those operations in order from left to right. So I am just going to work my problem from left to right because multiplication and division are on the same level. Okay, so I would say 12 divided by 2 is 6, and 6 times 3 is 18. Okay, whoops, come on now. All right, so 6 times 3 is 18. Okay, if I did it the other way, and if I multiplied first, I would end up with, let me rewrite it again over here. If I multiplied first, which is not the correct order of operations, if I'm talking about multiplication and division, they are on the same level. But if I said, oh, well, I multiply first because it comes before division in PEMDAS, but they're on the same level. So 2 times 3 would be 6, and 12 divided by 6 is 2, and that is the wrong answer. Okay? So when you're talking about multiplication and division, you work the problem from left to right. All right? Same thing with addition and subtraction. So we have parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division, which are on the same level, and then we have addition and subtraction, which are also on the same level. So again, if I'm doing a problem and it's just addition and subtraction, so I'm going to put multiplication and division, and we are working that left to right, okay? Left to right. It's not going to fit on my page. That's so sloppy. That's supposed to say left to right. Okay. If I had an example, let's say was 12 minus 2 plus 4. And I go back up to PEMDAS up here. Addition and subtraction. Again, addition is before subtraction in this phrase that we say to remember the steps. But again, these two are also on the same level, okay? So we're going to work our problem from left to right if we only have addition and subtraction, okay? So in this case, I have subtraction and addition. They're on the same level. So I'm just going to work the problem from left to right. And so in this case, I would subtract first, and that would give me 10. And then 10 plus 4 is 14. Okay. If I were to add first, I would end up with 2 plus 4 is 6, and 12 minus 6 is 6, and that would be the wrong answer. Okay. So when you have addition and subtraction, you are working the problem from left to right. You're not saying, oh, addition always comes before subtraction. That's not correct, okay? So that's why some teachers do not like this method of remembering the order of operations. And instead, they use a method called GEMS, okay? And so let me write this out for you. GEMS. And the G stands for groupings. Okay, the G stands for groupings. So that can be parentheses, it can be a bracket, it can be a fancy bracket. Okay, but groupings always come first. Exponents is still exponents. You try to type that in here. This would be exponents. Oh my Lord. Let's try this again. Exponents. Okay. And then the M is multiplication and division, left to right. Okay. Multiplication and division, left to right, because they are on the same level. So that stands for multiplication and division, and it is left to right. So if division happens first, if division appears first, you do division first. If multiplication appears first, then you do multiplication first. Okay, and then S is subtract and add, left to right. So again, they are on the same level. So subtraction and addition, and again, that is also left to right. So if subtraction comes first, you subtract first. If addition comes first, you add first. All right. So if I had a problem like this, let's say 2 times 4 plus 10 minus 7. Okay. And I thought about gems. Do I have anything that is grouped? Do I have anything that is grouped? Jasmine? Yes. What's grouped? Right. So since I have a grouping, I have to do that first. So 10 minus 7 would be 3. And then what I do is I take all of the rest of this problem and I bring it down next to my first thing that I solved. So 2 times 4 plus 3. Okay, so now I think about gems again. All right, so I've done my grouping. All right, so there's no more grouping. Are there any exponents? No. Do I have any multiplication or division? I have multiplication, so I have to do that next. Multiplication and division are solved before I add and subtract, always. Okay, so I do have multiplication here. So I am going to multiply 2 times 4, which is 8. And then I'm going to bring down what I have left. And then my final answer becomes what? Andrew? 11. Okay, and that's the answer. And that's how you do order of operations. We check for groupings or we check for parentheses. In this case, if I did PEMDAS, I checked for parentheses, okay? I didn't have any exponents. I did have multiplication and division. They're on the same level, so I do them left to right, which in this case, I only had multiplication. And then I added, subtracted last, okay? All right, the other thing that I want to talk to you about is multiplication symbols. All right, multiplication and division symbols. Because sometimes your symbols for multiplication can be a little bit different. So multiplication symbols. We have our regular symbol of the X. So this would be our symbol that we are used to seeing all the time, our traditional multiplication symbol. Sometimes you have a solid dot like that. Okay, that is not a decimal point. That is a multiplication symbol. So sometimes you'll see a dark dot between two numbers. That means multiplication. And then the other way you see multiplication is, oh gosh, let me try that again. Is, okay, maybe I won't try that again. I'll just go over here. This also means multiplication. When you have two numbers that are side by side to each other, or if you have a number that's on the outside of a parentheses or a groupings bar, it means multiplication, okay? So if you had this, 4, and then inside the parentheses you had this. This means 4 times the quantity means how much, 4 times the quantity of 2 plus 4. So if you think about what that means, if I said, what's 4 times the quantity of 2 plus 4? You would have to do what first in this problem? Kaylee? Yes, you're going to find the grouping or the parentheses in this case. That's what we do first. So the quantity of 2 plus 4 is 6. And because the 4 is hanging out here, that means you are multiplying. So 4 times 6 would be what? 24. Okay. So think about what that means. 4 times the quantity of 2 plus 4. 4 times the quantity of 6. And that would be 24. So you can see multiplication a number of ways. Traditional, the solid black dot, and outside of a parentheses bar. And likewise for division, division can be written multiple ways as well. You can see the traditional division symbol. Okay. How else can you see division? Like this? No?
It's like a line and then a ribbon. Like this.
Yeah, can you draw it for me? Oh, I know what you mean. Like this? Yeah, okay. So yes, you can see division like that, okay? You can also see division represented by this would be like a fraction bar, like if I said 8 halves. If I said that like a fraction, 8 halves, that means 8 divided by 2, which is what? Anybody? 4. 8 halves would be 4 whole. This means 8 divided by 2. You could also write it like this. 8 divided by 2. That equals 4. Okay? So you can sometimes see division represented by different symbols. Okay? So let's try one last problem, and then I'm going to have you guys work on your video for today. All right, this is going to be kind of a long one, and I'll help you out. And I'm just making this up on the fly. So let's do 2 times 4 plus 10 minus 2 times 2. Okay, that's a big problem, all right? Lots going on here. So we can say PEMDAS, or we can use GEMS. And I'll write GEMS over here on the side. GEMS. Okay, so if we're using PEMDAS, we are looking for parentheses. If we're using GEMS, our parentheses could be considered a group. So do we have any parentheses or groupings? Andrew? Yes. This right here is inside of my group, okay? But inside of my group, I have more than one operation. So we have to now think about that. Let me undo that. All right, so we do have a group. All right, so whoopsies, didn't want to do that. G. All right, so inside of our group, we have subtraction and we have multiplication. If we think about PEMDAS or if we think about GEMS, we have to multiply and divide, before we add and subtract. So in this case, inside of our groupings, we have to multiply first. So that is going to be 4. And then we have 10 minus 4. So inside that group, we have an answer of 6. Okay? Now I can move on to the rest of my problem. I'm going to bring this entire piece that I have not used yet, I'm going to bring that down here. So I'm going to rewrite it. 2 times 4 plus 6. So I need to think about what I have remaining. I have multiplication and I have addition. Okay? Is one of those operations more important than the other? I shouldn't say more important, but do I have to do one of those first? according to PEMDAS or GEMS? Kaylee? Yes, I'm still working on multiplication. I still have multiplication that I have to work on before I have to add or subtract. So in this case, I'm going to slide this down just a tad. I would have 2 times 4, which is 8. Okay, and then I would bring down all of this that I haven't used. And 8 plus 6, I'm obviously left with just one operation. So my answer in this case would be 14. Okay, 14. All right, so 2 different ways that you can think about this: PEMDAS or GEMS. Your video today talks about PEMDAS. The video tomorrow is going to use GEMS. Okay, so whatever way you are comfortable with. You will not have exponents on, you will see exponents in tomorrow's video, but you're not going to have practice problems or math check assignments with exponents. But it's good to know what an exponent is. And we will talk about exponents, again in here. All right. So that is that. And I am done recording.